Good evening, everyone. It is August 8th, 2023. Now, coming into today, what I was looking for was a sell-off, a kind of liquidation scenario down to that 44.85 balance. What I'd been saying was that Monday was simply just it was an August Monday, low close after liquidation. It was just kind of short covering to me, and what I wanted to see were the short step in at 45.40 to 45.50 and give us that move down below 4,500. Close that gap at 44.78, reclaim 85s, and make a move upwards. But instead, we have left that gap open. We put in a low of the day at about 81s, roughly the -2 standard deviation of last week's VWAP. And from there, it was just a really, really powerful bid. And now we're back at this 45.22 number, right at that level. Now you can see from Sunday's outlook, what I had was that if we get a bid off the gap close, off that 44.78's gap close, I was looking for a reclaim of 45.22s. I was looking to see if we could do that. And if so, we're going to head to the other side of balance. Maybe that's easier to see on a bigger time frame chart. So essentially, if we came down here and we had a bid around that gap close, I was looking for us to rotate back up to sort of something like this. And that's what we've got so far. That's what we're getting. So that's what I'm going to be looking for tomorrow, was that are we able, now that we've held that lower balance around 44.85, do we traverse to the other side of balance, or will sellers step in before we get there, and will sellers step in somewhere around this 25 number and get us moving back downwards? In my opinion, I think it's unlikely. Today had a 40-point range, I believe, during the RTH. Yeah, right about there, about 40.5 points. If you include the external trading hours, a 60-point range day. You compare that to the liquidation from Friday, and that session had 67 points. So you're dealing with a pretty sizable range, in my opinion, 67 versus 60. In my opinion, what you're going to have is a smaller rotational session tomorrow ahead of CPI on Thursday pre-market, and then also the PPI pre-market as well on Friday. So what I'll be looking for is a smaller session. Now, let's also just go into the higher time frame view of the Nasdaq. God, unfortunately, these lines keep going over from my other chart. What I just wanted to show was that we have this trend line here, hit it perfectly to probably not to the tick on the Nasdaq, but pretty close. And now we're getting that bid back up. And I want to see, can sellers keep us below this 475 number, that that first half of the year's high on the Nasdaq? That 475 number was also the nice spot where we're getting bids in that late 2021, early 2022 spot. So this will be the main spot for shorts to keep us down on the Nasdaq, roughly 475 to 600. And on the ES, we need to see, can shorts keep us underneath 45, 40 to 65-ish, or are we just going to return into this balance? Once again, we do not want lingering around that 45.50. If we do, it's likely to start drifting on upwards. So with all that in mind, how am I looking to trade this? Let's start off with the ES. I'm going to be interested in this range for the most part, maybe taking some longs here, mostly after a gap close scenario. But again, I don't think you're going to really trade that. I think for the most part, you're going to get a range something like this, maybe 45.10s up to 45.45, something like that. So I want to be short 45.50 and 3/4 after a tag of those 54s. That has not changed from, I think, what I described the other day. So that has not changed. Below there, I want to be short somewhere around 44. I think I'd let that 45 half POC trade first from that Friday liquidation session, see if we get the selling, and maybe even take 40 short, to be quite honest. Maybe I'll throw this in here. 45, 39.75 after 45.50 tag. So that's simply getting short at the settlement highs after a move to the point of control from that Friday liquidation session. That also puts us underneath the ADR highs, which are stretching from roughly 39 to 44. So back inside sort of the quote extreme ranges for the day. Below there, I'd like to get short 36s in some sort of way. I'm not really sure how that would play out right now, so maybe something to change at the open. Below, I'm interested in getting long 20 quarter, that being the critical level from the past couple days where we were bid during the overnight. That's where we were churning around. You can see it here, offered nicely, offered again, and then those bids there. So that is the area I'm interested in after perhaps a tag of the previous day's high, something like this. So what I'm looking for right now is some sort of gap up scenario. So tag the previous day's high. Uh, where's that previous day's high? Is it 22s? It is 22s. Ah, forgot to include this. There we go. I would be willing to take 26 half long if we get that gap close and bid off there off of today's high at 22s. Below there, willing to get long 10s, that being settlement lows, also where we caught the bid nicely during the Thursday overnight and then Thursday RTH. Below there, kind of the last spot I would want to see us get down to. Honestly, 10s would be the ideal bid location, but if we get down to 02s, not the end of the world. Still above last week's low. That being the 95% value area low, where we had those bids show up and some offers, and then getting long here, and then the very final longs I'd be willing to take would be down here at that 4 p.m. price close from this gap session. However, I am doubtful that trades on the NQ. Wow, 7 minutes. Like I mentioned, so far getting some reflexive short covering at that trend line, and right now it looks like we are facing resistance from this downward trend line, similar to ES with 45.22 and reclaiming. This has done a really great job of closing that gap at 280s, reclaiming 342s, where we've been bid so many times, once again bid during the overnight and climbing above. This trend line likely breaks, in my opinion, and we backtest it sometime during the RTH and then move up higher. If we start to break down, I don't really want to see us move down too far below. Otherwise, it might be another little mini liquidation session until getting into this large high time frame trend line. So how am I looking to trade the Nasdaq? Let's get into this. Let me just open up my other charts on another screen, make sure I'm not missing anything. 350, 342, and 331s are the other spot I would be interested in getting long. There we go. So the main area that I'll be looking at long is that today's price close at 4 p.m., the 350s, below their 342s to 331s. Just 342s, that 95% yearly value area high. Below there, the weekly lows, settlement lows, and 331, that first half of the year's close. This entire area has been bid for just about a week now. And going back in prior times, you can see great bids here, offers, whatever. It's been an important spot. Below there, 300s, another spot I'm willing to get long. This was the primary area of resistance when we liquidated, and that's where we caught bids. Wouldn't be surprised if it tagged 290 first, the VWAP close, and then perhaps taking 300 long after that. Below there, getting long at the point of control from today, the accumulatory or perhaps short covering bids at 259 and 3/4, lining up with the 95% value area high from the first half of this year. That 260 level, just one tick above. Above there, willing to get short. In my opinion, like I mentioned, we're looking at 468, so I'm not too ambitious on the short side until we get somewhere around there. I think we're going to test somewhere around here, right? So somewhere around this kind of 430 to 550 areas where I'm looking at us trading. So likewise, 433 is the first area I'd be willing to get short. That is the weekly open. Above there, I think you're starting to fight some momentum. We're willing to get short at the prior week's point of control, around 468 up to 475. So I'd be waiting for a tag of 480 first, and then getting short somewhere around 468 to 475. 475 is again being that first half of the year's high. Above there, getting short 523 and a half. that being the after a tag of 547s. That's where we had that auction before the liquidation. And above their final area I'd be willing to get short is 551s after a tag of the point of control from Thursday at 569s. So overall, looking for a balanced session. I don't think we're going to get further liquidation tomorrow ahead of CPI. We've had a large Friday. We've had a large Tuesday. Monday was nice and rotational. Now with that peak below 330s on the Nasdaq, as well as peak below kind of 45.10 to 02-ish on the ES, I think that we're in for a nice rotational session. Again, mostly trading between 45.10 to 45, and on the Nasdaq trading between about 330 to let's call it 520-ish, something like that. 11 minutes, too long. This will likely be updated at the open. I think that will be opening on a gap up, get some sort of false liquidation, and then move up higher for that move to the other side of balance. Hope that makes sense. Hope that helps. Have a great night and trade safe.